I used to live next door to my 89-year-old landlady, who was a lovely woman. Every afternoon, at around 5 p.m., she would be out in her beloved garden sweeping the leaves from the walkway with a stick broom that could be heard from my house. One evening I arrived to find her sitting in her garden, broom in hand, weeping. I sat beside her, took her hand and asked her what was wrong. "I just realized," she said, "that soon I am going to die and I can't take my garden with me." "Don't you worry," I said. "I am certain that a part of you will remain in this garden." She passed a couple of weeks later, and for months every afternoon at 5 p.m., I could still hear the sound of her sweeping. When I was about 14, I lived in an old house that once belonged to my great-grandmother. Right next door was an even older house that was once home to my great-grandmother's mother, Mama Roberts. Mama Roberts was dead, and I always suspected that she may have died in the house because there was a creepy feel whenever you were in the house. We mostly used the house for storage, but there was also a ping-pong table and my friends would come over and we would play ping-pong in the house. One day my friends and I were playing ping-pong and it started to get late, so we turned off the lights in the house. My friends went home and I went back to my house. After an hour or so, my parents called to me and told me the light was on in the house where we were playing ping-pong. I was sure I turned the light off, but when I stepped outside, I saw that dark, scary house with a light on in the room where we were playing ping-pong. The thought of going to that house in the dark gave me goosebumps all over. I was very scared, but then I thought, hey, Mama Roberts is my relative, she wouldn't hurt me, her spirit may even help me if she had the chance. So I shouted to the house and said, "Mama Roberts, I left the light on, can you turn the light off?" That instant, the light went off. It still creeps me out, and that was 22 years ago. At 18 I was sitting in my bedroom, studying for my A-level exams. My father suddenly walked into my bedroom, said, "I hope you are revising aluminium. Aluminium is going to come up in that exam," and left the room. I had actually been studying maths at the time, but I decided to take the hint and study aluminium. Fast forwards about 3 weeks to my chemistry written exam. I opened the paper and did my normal practice of reading all the questions, highlighting the ones that I thought were a possibility, and scribbling a few notes. About halfway down the questions was a short one, probably no more than 2 lines, which was something like, "Describe the sources, properties, extraction, and uses of aluminium." I was a bit shaken. Well, obviously, I answered the aluminium question and passed the age-level chemistry written exam, and also the practical exam. So what was creepy? My dad had an inkling about what was a good thing to study and gave me a hint. So far, no big deal. Except that he had died 4 years earlier. That's it. I saw my dead father, who told me what I should revise for my chemistry exam, and the hint was correct. This happened during our hostel days. Those were the initial days of our hostel life, and we were getting to know our roommates and classmates. One night, after dinner, 5 to 6 of my classmates were gathered in my room and we were just talking about hostel lives and all that. From there, we found ourselves talking about ghosts and other paranormal stuff happening in hostels, and how there is at least one ghost story associated with a hostel wherever you go. This took long, and finally we settled in beds around 11:30. I'm not at all ashamed to admit that we were so scared that night that we left the lights on, joined our beds and went to sleep. Now the scary part comes. Roughly around 2:30, I was sound asleep when I felt as if someone has slapped me really hard. I was a little late to react, but when I opened my eyes, the sight was horrifying. The lights were out and my room was empty. All 3 of my roommates were not in their beds. Without blinking my eyes, I jumped off my bed, I found myself sprinting in the alleyways towards the hall where the duty cadet keeps night watches. The hall was empty and dark too. The only source of light was the bathroom, so I entered it and suddenly something out of nowhere pranced on me from behind. I got so terrified that if I had a pistol in my hand, I would have emptied it on my attacker in a second. Then I heard what was laughter from all corners of the bathroom. I realized that I was the main character of the prank my friends played on me. They told me how one of them slapped me hard and hid under my bed and how they planned it after I went to sleep. All in all, I couldn't sleep for the 2 following days thanks to my friends. I've had many experiences, but one of the most terrifying was when I was 10 years old, and my mom was driving me and my siblings home from a birthday party. The party was in the rural country at the end of January, and a snowstorm began just as we entered the country roads with no other cars in sight. We were a good hour from home. The snow increasingly got worse until all I could see was a sheet of white in front of us. My siblings, fortunately, fell asleep. My mom had no choice but to pull over and wait for the whiteout to pass. When she felt confident enough to get back on the road, our van was stuck in the snow, wheels spinning, not moving an inch. I thought we might freeze to death on that country road. Suddenly, headlights appear behind us and a man's figure gets out of a vehicle, walks up to my mother's window and knocks. He offers to push the car and get us back on the road. He succeeds. I turn around in my seat to catch one last glimpse of the stranger who, I felt, saved our lives, but no man was there. No vehicle or headlights were even in sight. To this day I believe it was an angel that saved us that night. Second, fast forward 20 years, the day I had to take my fiancé off life support and watch his heart beat for the last time before he was pronounced dead. I went home not knowing what to do with myself, how to cope. I couldn't sleep for the life of me. My brain was too busy processing our last days together, our horrible fight, the things I should have done differently, the future we no longer had. Suddenly, I felt an arm wrap around my waist and hold me, the exact same way my fiancé used to do as we slept. It felt so real that I jumped out of bed looking around, expecting someone to be there. But I was alone. I dreamed of my fiancé that night. We were riding in a car and I could see him laughing and smiling, showing his huge dimples, but I couldn't reach him. I woke up feeling comforted, like he was still with me and he was telling me he was okay and I would be okay too. My mom, well, she thought she was psychic. She wasn't, ever. But she'd look at you with a straight face and swear to all the angels in heaven, all of them, that she could bust out playing cards and tell you your future. This went on for a long time. In fact, she stuck to that idea until she died. Anyway, so this one time she began to get the notion that she could clear bad spirits from people's houses, cars, whatever. She was this exorcist and she could send any damn thing to the light. Just, go to the light, my child, go to the light. Well, one day this girl I had dated for a minute showed up to my mom's store. Yup. She had a psychic book store. This girl had a new boyfriend and they'd moved into this big house that had been built in the late 1800s or something, maybe early 1900s, big Victorian type. And they were having problems at night. There was thumping on the stairs, there was growling, just weird shit. So my mom says she'll go clear the house. Now, I'm a teenager about 19. I really wanted to prove to my mom that she was delusional. I told her I wanted to go. I'm thinking I'll go and nothing will happen, and I will shove in my mom's face the fact that none of that crap was real, so we could get on with our lives and my mom won't act so damn crazy. As if. So the time comes and we load up in the car. 30-minute drive across town. Pull up, get out. Old girl and her boyfriend had coffee on, so we drank coffee. I had to piss, so I go up to the bathroom. Up to this point I was really smug, but as soon as I started taking a whiz, the temperature dropped. A lot. I could see my breath. It was August. I hurried because I also felt like someone was standing right behind me. I get back downstairs, drink some more coffee, and don't say a word about the bathroom. My mom suddenly decides, it's time. Candles get lit, lights turned off, and we sit down. As soon as I sat, I felt hands clamp onto my shoulders. There's nothing but a wall behind me and my chair is up against it. No way possible that someone is actually behind me. My mom starts her thing, calling for spirits to come so she can show them where to go, whatever. Those hands never left my shoulders and I couldn't stand up. Next thing I know, I'm hearing shit. Voices, feet on stairs, doors creaking, there's a cold breeze, in August. My heart's thumping. Then I started seeing things. The walls were lined with human-shaped shadows. At this point, my mom stands up, says there's nothing more she could do, and as she hauled for the front door. I passed her up and beat her to the car. I felt something with us all the way home, so did she. We felt it at the house. Nobody slept that night. To this day I don't know what that was. But I don't go poking around things I don't understand, ever.